Thank you, and it's wonderful to be here. I don't know about the godfather of blockchain. There's a lot of other people that have done some amazing things for us to get here, but we have spent a lot of time in this world, and we're grateful for the opportunity to be here in New Zealand. New Zealand has a very near and dear place to in our heart when it comes to bringing not just blockchain, but what it relies on for open source and open standards to the world. We believe that building here in New Zealand was the right place on the earth. We did an actual big study, and there were 3 places, and New Zealand was selected. I personally moved a family of 8 down here in Tauranga and Omokoroa a couple of years. We literally lived here for 2 years, but New Zealand, getting off that plane, it's like coming home. But I still haven't slept for a couple of days, but I'm grateful to be here. So again, Michael Proper, work with an organization called ClearFoundation, which is based here out of New Zealand. And I'll just go through the details of really a culmination of all the things that we talked about today. You'll see pieces and parts touched on, but really intelligently integrating open source and open standards is what we've been doing. And ClearFoundation particularly focuses on those open source and open standards. History goes way back into the mid-90s, specifically working on technology, even when, for me, it was like, what is technology? Why am I supposed to be doing this? Getting into it, building systems that actually helped to combine hardware and software and services, and then figured out a model, or shown a model in 2000, to combine that hardware, software, services, predictable monthly fee. Ended up building what was known the managed service provider sector and industry. It's a $256 billion industry today, and specifically becoming #1 in 2008 in that sector and category. So that is basically delivering systems on-premise. If we talk about this whole decentralized system, we're talking about off-premise. It's not on one central location, okay? So we've been in this industry for a long time, but ultimately it was all about how doing it for other people for a predictable monthly fee. And then in 2009, bumped into what we all call blockchain, or one use case of it with crypto. And actually, some team members put some money into it, a material amount of money, like 30 to 50 grand, a couple of them, and it ended up over years turning into something that's real. And so we spent a lot of time figuring out, not just on the money side of it, because I only think that's one real use case, but specifically how can we as humans actually use this technology for the betterment of mankind. And today what we're going to show you is elements of a platform that touches on a lot of the things that we've actually discussed prior today. The team specifically, there is a community of 103,000 members for the ClearFoundation around the world. There's actually a good chunk of them here, but specifically outside of developed countries as well. The team, it specifically has 91 individuals in 9 different offices spread throughout the world. Those offices range from Vienna to Greece, to 2 in Canada, a couple in the United States, a couple in India. I actually love working with some of those folks. And then specifically here in New Zealand. The foundation is primarily here for a couple different things. One is the jurisdiction. I don't know if you really understand. New Zealand is one of the leaders that actually enabled this type of technology. How? Because of what the laws they specifically did with open source. So how can you have an environment that has no software patent law and strong copyright law that enables a fertile ground for open source? So if you really understand that, New Zealand is absolutely fertile ground for these types of projects, but it was hard for us to find developers here, so it's beautiful to be able to see these type of ecosystems growing today. When we focus on open standards, open source, and closed source, there's really an element when we take on-premise and off-premise that creates huge scale. And that's really what we believe is kind of the magic sauce with this, and you're seeing that happen with really blockchain or environments where it can go on-premise, it doesn't cost anything. They can do certain things with it and have a unique element, and then it connects over to closed-based things. Specifically, Microsoft historically has been closed-based. They've done some amazing things, what they've done with the open invention networks and donating patents, which then creates huge barriers and competitive advantage for others. Microsoft's in this game now, so these open standards actually plug it all together. But very important to understand the combination of all those things. It's really, really important to also think about everything we're talking about today is all centralized. Most of the systems that we use, whether they're banking, whether there's Facebook, whether there's LinkedIn, most of the systems are all centralized in one data center or a distributed architecture for data centers around the world. What we're really talking about is how you actually take that and scale it to true independent environments that can actually use that synchronization throughout different, and it's not just development. It's also how these systems actually get distributed. So the model and architecture is hugely important, so kind of understanding this perspective. Teams that have actually helped to build this literally have helped to build amazing companies in the world. 230 plus years in management leadership, whether it's starting them or growing them or advancing them or just straight up managing them. But solid, solid companies. We specifically have a pretty unique relationship with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Not that the technology is unique to HPE, because it works on any x86 or MIPS or ARM-based architectures, so it can get deployed on-premise. But specifically with HPE, because they actually pre-install ClearOS, which is a product that we'll talk about here in a second. They pre-install it on all their ProAlliance servers around the world. So they pre-install it and then ship them out, so they're actually able to be procured and actually put into homes or into businesses or other types of environments. This is actually the launch of one of the servers, $350 server. Basically can go up to 50 terabytes of storage. It'll do everything from file, server, print, everything that you would need for compute and one location on premise. Very disruptive. It also goes way up till their 380 servers. So really important to kind of look at combination of hardware players that understand security at the silicon layer all the way up. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But specifically, not just AMD, but also there's Intel elements. But we've built these partnerships with certain types of partners to be able to get a product that's truly disruptive. When you look at the adoption, everything in kind of not green is general open source. There's no revenue tied to it, but people are starting to adopt it and use it. This is a simple freemium model. So just like you use Gmail and then you convert it to your business, it's a freemium model, same type of thing. Purely open source, it'll always be open source, it'll always be free, have a free version of it, but it creates this beachhead, if you will, where people can actually start adopting it, and there's a conversion, and you only pay for things where there's actually value added. So it's not this normal commercial type, we want to build it and then multiply on top of it. There has to be a real value exchange. These are customers, we have no salespeople, so these are customers that actually come in, test the product. There's some really interesting new unique ones, but there's about 18,000 of them around the world. So when some of the other folks were like, well, show us what you're doing with it. How's it actually working? How are people taking it and applying it? These are companies that have actually taken the technology, implemented it, and paid for it without being, hey, we're going to force this down your throat because we want to sell something to you. So it's a different paradigm shift, but it's leveraging open source and open standards to get there. This is an example of what we do. So most of us all have a cell phone in our pocket, right? This actually, I would say, if you're running on iOS or if you're running on Android, those are all open source platforms, and they all have their own unique marketplace attached to them. But then that's at the mobile layer, right? But in all reality, instead of having different hardware devices, so you've got different things from the past, where they may have their own charging system, their own display system, their own input system. You combine it to use a standard input, charging, and display, or others. But you can see this already happening in this layer, right? Everyone's watched this over the last 15 years, right? Does this make sense to you? Okay. This is not exactly what we do. It's at the mobile layer. We do it at the node layer. So we actually, where the server, the network, and the gateways all rest at your homes or at your businesses, that's where we are, where that internet connection comes in. So it replaces companies like the manufacturers in these areas. Microsoft, Cisco, SonicWall, Barracuda, you name it. You don't need these features and functions. Most of them actually use open source technology, not all of them. And then they resell it and package it and call it a good marketing scheme. Or well, I won't even make that comment. But basically, at the server, the network, and the gateway layer, and it can do much more, but those are the particular layers that we focused on originally. So you basically do things like firewalls, routers, intrusion detection, content filtering, anything that's technical, that's integrated, it's built into the system. And just like some of the companies that are already here, there's a marketplace where you can actually do more things in these particular layers. And then you can put it on I wish I had a little pointer here, but you can basically put it on any x86-based server. So you don't have to buy something from some company. You can put it on any x86-based server. And again, MIPS and ARM are also platforms that it'll work on. But then you can actually do things from a simple web interface instead of having a clunky environment. You've already seen this happen with Microsoft and DOS, or Mosaic in the web browser with Netscape. So you've already seen this transition over time, but now we're specifically doing it on a system that will run nodes at your home or at your business. Again, remember that decentralized area? You cannot think the same central perspective and think that blockchain's going to go out there. We saw a use case with iLove. I really, really respect where Microsoft's going. But if we go and take everything and stick it on Azure, what have we just done? Centralized, right? Amazon, Google, Rackspace, it's all centralized. We've got to get it decentralized. This is basically a simple web-based interface to do it for free with a marketplace that's built on top of it that integrates almost any system that you can think of. Dropbox, Google, I should say Google Apps. Multi-WAN, that's probably one of the biggest use cases. So how can people basically take a ship, you guys see a lot of them around here, move over the water while the Earth is moving and the satellites are moving and still stay connected to the internet? Most of the technology that does that is actually from free apps inside of the system that we give away. There's companies that build businesses just on that example. So there's tons of apps, 158 apps today and 3 or 4 more that will be released this next month. They're released from an architecture or framework where there's an API and a white paper and people can build to them. It's not all in the Clear ecosystem. It's for the world to basically build to this standard. I hope this is making sense to you. If you're a software developer, you should pay attention. How many in this room actually run a node? Any kind of blockchain node? Was it complicated to set up? Where do you run it? Do you run it on a laptop? Do you run it on a desktop? Do you run it on a phone? We believe that there has to be simplicity in how this is actually done. Most of you have internet connections at your house, right? And those are usually run open source technology. So if you take that server, network, and gateway layer, combine it into one system that's plugged into an internet connection, this actually enables these nodes to be run, whether they're in a business or whether they're in a home, okay? So not on a desktop, not on a laptop. They look something similar to this. So you literally have x86-based system that just has some software and services built onto it to deploy it as a secure environment, okay? I'm going to go through a little video that'll talk a little bit about specifics.
Blockchains and digital currencies are here to stay, but reliability and security threats are real and need to be addressed. Every day you see new reports of hacked hardware, compromised exchanges and stolen tokens. ClearNode is the solution. ClearNode is a bundle of hardware, software and services that provides 4 key functions no one else can provide. To harden your system, consolidate resources, secure your network and even monetize your unused storage. Only ClearNode can harden your system by protecting itself on 4 critical layers: server, chip, disk and apps, thanks to our advanced security software and HPE's silicon root of trust-based hardware. Consolidate your firewall, unified threat management, servers, gateway, network and storage capabilities all within one ClearNode running ClearOS. ClearNode's ClearGN protects your devices, local networks and digital wallets by using machine learning to allow only approved connections. This ensures safe transactions, private communication and data security. Apps from the ClearOS marketplace power ClearNode, so anyone can build on top of the platform. Our first app is ClearShare, a decentralized cloud storage app that is backed by ClearToken and powered by a new type of blockchain. Want more storage? Start sharing your unused disk space. Sharing your storage also farms ClearTokens. Your data and files are encrypted, stored locally and then sharded, getting distributed through the ClearShare community. You hold the encryption keys, so you maintain total control of your data. ClearNode. Protect your home or business with the first secure backbone and app store for blockchains and digital currencies.
So hopefully that made a little bit more sense. A little animation can turn on more lights than I can, but this node thing is really important because how are we going to move to this decentralized, whether we're talking about identities or apps or storage or social or genealogy, any of the stuff we've talked about, how are we going to do things differently if we don't have architecture or infrastructure that's different? And this isn't like it's inventing brand new hardware or systems. It's just intelligently combining them in such a way that we can actually use them and use them at scale. Here's a couple examples of different types of blockchain apps or DApps, distributed apps, that can actually be kind of the initial focus. So whether it's identity or inventory or insurance or healthcare or banking, banking's primarily the one we all talk about with cryptocurrencies. But there's so many use cases, right? We've talked about them all day for almost all week. But specifically, where are we at and where do we kind of focus? There's a lot of noise that's out there because it can actually do a lot of things from a hypothetical standpoint. I'm going to kind of walk through a vision that focuses down all this different noise that's out there into an environment. So ClearShare, as it talked about, think about, for those of you that are familiar with RAID, so maybe you've got a couple hard drives in a local environment, and you put a file and you spread it across them, and if one of your drives goes down, you still have your files, right? But that's on one system and local to you. Basically, what this is doing is the same thing, but it's putting it in lots of different environments. Imagine 96 different servers having one piece of one photo that you've basically taken. And if 33 of them were to go offline for whatever reason at the same concurrent time, you would still have it. One, your file is not accessible by anywhere that it's stored. Two, it comes back to you faster. And three, it can never go away. It's a better way to use technology, but you have to have the nodes out there to do it, right? Why haven't we seen a Facebook replacement? Because it takes so much storage. It's not compute and bandwidth, it's storage. So that's one of the reasons why this is important. You're seeing really good companies. I think what Filecoin's doing, IPFS, storage, Saya, they're really good companies. And you'll see them actually building onto the same marketplace because this creates the storage infrastructure for them. But then how do you actually use it and what do you do it with? So on top, so let's say you've got an application, like we got 158 plus, but that's just one example of one of them. That sits on top of an operating system, ClearOS, that has a marketplace. It's not like this stuff is brand new. It's 17 years in development. Some brilliant minds out of Carnegie Mellon started this like in 2000, 2001. We bumped into it in 2005. Make a long story short, it's built on top of Red Hat, which most of the systems in any kind of structured world is actually running. I mean, you can name it, whether it's stock exchange, medical systems, NASA, space stations, you name it. It's already running the same platform. We build this beautiful interface on top of it that has a workable marketplace that anybody can use. It's in 86 languages. Has over 150 countries that have deployments in it and 470,000 deployments that's already happened. The average is 29 users per land segment. This building would be a good example of one deployment. We don't force feed this. Do you guys, have you ever heard of us? No, but we're right here. Right here. New Zealand is not perfect, but it has done a ton of things right. The corruption is very low. I remember when Microsoft was literally lobbying to try and overturn some of the software patent laws, and they were actually winning. It was going to happen. Me and a couple of the individuals were able to call and go down to Wellington and meet with individuals, and they stopped it and turned it around. They listen. It's a lot more than I can say for other environments. You live in a beautiful environment for that type of thing to happen. That's why ClearOS is actually viable, is a lot of the laws that already came out of here. I'll stop blabbing on that. ClearVM, this is actually a patented system that we did the same thing that Microsoft did, where we open it up so other people can't take from a web-based interface that uses APIs to actually build virtual machines. What's the value that Amazon brings to the world today? They do ping power pipe on a virtualized platform in an air-conditioned environment, centralized. We want to do the same thing, but decentralized. Okay? Underneath that runs a thing called ClearGM. Actually, this is another app that blocks the whole of the internet. Literally, the whole of the internet. Everything gets blocked, every port, every URL. Then it uses machine learning to allow only the good. When a user says, I want to go to CNN, it actually looks at CNN and says, well, are you sure you want to go there, first off? But then it looks at all the 100+ backlinks to it, and we map all of those to see which ones are actually appropriate based upon the policy. So in other words, we can actually have a clean environment where these nodes are connecting to the internet using machine learning based upon mapping the whole of the internet. It's creating its own new infrastructure. If you really understood that, that is probably one of the most powerful messages I'll even say today. It's free. You can get ClearOS and ClearGM for free. Actually, it's called gateway management inside of the system. And then there's an orchestration system. So it doesn't matter if it's on-premise or off-premise. Any cloud infrastructure, Amazon, Rackspace, Google, you name it, it has an API that's built to it. All these systems do not work through VPNs or wide area networks or any of the normal networking protocols. They only work through APIs that say you can do this to here. That's it. The authority structure is absolutely architected correctly at force scale. You can see costs, you can deploy them, you can move workloads from on-premise to off-premise. So if people are building all this in Amazon or Azure or whatever, you can literally plug it in and move it to a different location. Whole nother conversation, but it's very important because the whole vision takes this orchestration layer to the virtualization layer, to the operating system layer, and then plugs in certain use cases. This is a use case that ties to, you got a decentralized identity, which we've heard a little bit about. Then you've got a decentralized social media platform, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn replacement that's decentralized and free and private. Then on top of that, you basically have elements of healthcare. Another thing that New Zealand's done better than anybody else, in my opinion. One centralized database. In America, they got 50 databases. Then you basically tie, there's another gal. Remember when she was up talking about genealogy? She gets it. Mrs. Dunn gets it. What is the most valuable information that we all have? This generation, the people in this room, most of us were born, and there was no Facebook. There was no cell phones. Literally, the data that we store inside of these systems, when we die, they die with us. Why can't we as humans integrate this into a system that is actually able to track these things based upon how we want to track them in a private thing, but then store it for memories for the future? Store it for in a private way, so to speak. There's so much more here, and there's actually elements that aren't even here, but you basically can have a central location with other, or there's 4 different locations. They're all in different locations, so to speak, as far as on-premise, off-premise. But literally, they have a power connection, an internet connection. If we can make those power connections and internet connections unique and stable, think about it. The data centers, the ping power pipe and air-conditioned environments, we can decentralize this. There's a ton to this, but this is the whole vision, so to speak. When you decouple it, think about the digital identity stuff. So New Zealand is working on projects here. You may not even know it, that you're already using technology that's coming out of the stuff we're talking about. So specifically, this is from the Sovereign Foundation, okay, and an organization called Evernyms also doing some massive stuff. You talk about Visa worldwide, MasterCard worldwide, and 5 or 6 other amazing companies are already adopting these standards. They donated the open source code to Hyperledger, which is the Linux Foundation, which I'll bet you majority of the folks that are working on digital identity are already using the code that's underneath this stuff, okay? Or whether you're talking about Signal or secure communication. How can it all come together and we actually touch it? Let me back up here. So what this is basically I have my own identity, and then I go to my bank and I say, I need to prove that I am who I am. Then maybe I go to, who else? I go to my driver's license, you know, the DMV. And by the way, it was refreshing to get a license here in New Zealand. It's totally different. It's very simple compared to other places. But basically, I validate my driver's license. And this literally can start building these different trust environments. You guys have heard lots of people talk about it. But this is how you can touch it. A simple app that says this is who I am. If I want to go into a bar and get a drink, I don't have to prove what my birth date is or give them my driver's license ID. Hey, it verified I'm of age. Not that I drink, but the point is that's a good example. Or if I want to buy a plane ticket, I know who I am and I know my bank account, but I don't have to give them my account numbers. I just send them the funds. So hopefully it's making sense on how we as humans can touch it. This is another example of how we can touch it. This is specifically from a community adoption standpoint. So how do all those elements come together, whether it's us as an individual or us as families or us as groups? You know, we're doing this, but we're doing it online using tools that are all centralized. And we give it away. How much do we give away? Me included. How much do we give away to Facebook for convenience? If you only knew what's going on in the back end of that, it's craziness. There has to be a better way. This is an example. These are actually screenshots of the system. So literally, life, family, friends, groups, you sign into it, you see a similar experience that you would on Facebook. When you actually post here, it also posts all the other mediums. And then it posts a link that pulls them back into it. So literally, we'll be able to grow it faster than the Facebook did in their world. You can have communities that do certain things. The ties to genealogy. So already, there's already an organization that's donated, looking at it, 1 billion names that are already specifically inside of genealogy. Have we ever connected the living with the dead to know who we are? How many of us in this room are connected? Why not use technology to actually connect mankind? We talk about for a bigger purpose. We're going to die someday. How are we going to track our memories? How are we going to track our lives? I've got my daughter. I've got 6 kids. I got my daughter here. How are we going to track these experiences that we have in the physical? It's very, very important work, if you ask me. You can track, specifics around. I don't have much time, so I won't even go into details here. I want to talk a little bit about a product or a token or a coin called Clear. Okay? So this specifically, it's not about an ICO. It's not about raising a bunch of money. Yeah, there's people who throw money at it, but we're not out there purporting saying, hey, put this in for this. No, as a matter of fact, we're doing just the opposite. We want to give it away. Give it away to the world. If there is any kind of proceeds, there's an endowment that actually goes to buy future tokenized energy, which will be a beautiful reality when we talk more about that in the future. But basically, 50% goes to the platform, 50% goes to this endowment. So it never goes away. This is all New Zealand. When we talk specifically about it, hopefully there's elements of this that are like, oh my goodness, I wish I would have known about this, or it's good to know about it. This is right here, based on New Zealand. The 12th of October is the first day that we're actually giving away these tokens to the world. We're giving them away in this little bonanza. We actually announced this stuff, if you were paying attention, we announced it on Independence Day for New Zealand on the 6th of February. But today is the Independence Day for Equatorial Guinea. Okay? So these many tokens will actually be given away. Go through, I'll show you exactly. All you do is you click on a link, you log in with your social profile. You don't even put in passwords. Passwords are garbage. You should never use a password. If you're logging into systems that use passwords, you got real realities from a security standpoint. There should always be some type of a separate identifier. So you basically log in. These are the tokens that have been allocated, just the little ones that have the lines through it. So literally 12% have been allocated today. The rest of them are going out for farming with the nodes or given away to seed the world with it. Okay? The world will basically get it on their Independence Day based upon how many citizens are in their country from today until the 11th of next year, October 11th of next year. Okay? All you do is you go in, create an account. You basically create a wallet. It gives you your private keys. It truly gives you your own secure environment. If you've used MyEther Wallet, it's built on similar type technologies. You have your own wallet. You have your own tokens. You can rebuild it with any of your others. And then you'll see every single country on their Independence Day. You click on it, and it'll pull up this where you basically, I want to apply this many tokens or tickets to get tokens. By the way, the tickets are given away for free. Think about it. It's the opposite that we're all talking about with this ICO greed. Absolutely the opposite. These tickets, you can assign it to a certain day. Based upon the day that you assign it to, it'll equally be divided up based upon how many tickets are put in, and the tokens will be given out. So let's say on New Zealand Independence Day, people come in, certain quantity of it, this one ticket or 3 tickets that are put here would actually go towards 2.17%, which give them 120,000 clear. Okay? That we will actually accept for payment, it actually is like 108,000 a day, for a clear node. Do you understand what just happened? You basically get into an environment, you become a part of this ecosystem by using it. And when we use it, what is it? Is gold really a good medium of exchange? Is a New Zealand dollar? I mean, the exchange rates are just, I won't even get into the economics of it. The point is anyone can get into this. Anyone can drop a ticket in. Anyone can actually become a node. You just have to pay attention to it, okay? We believe that this will change the wasteful mining stuff that's going on and the degradation to the earth, primarily around energy usage, to creating it so that people can actually farm and not waste. Very, very important. I won't go through this. There's a process here, 5-year process, to literally get these things out into the world, primarily through farming. Farming of storage, farming of power, farming of processing, farming of elements of making sure that connections are coming in. Like I said, there's a small allocation. If you want to see something about the leadership team, I can run through it. But basically, we are here. ClearFoundation is here in New Zealand. This is the first year we've actually been nominated for the Open Source Awards down in Wellington. I don't know if voting's open or not. We don't do marketing or PR. It's not us to go and pay to do this and put the logos there. If the technology works, people will come, and that's what we're all about. So again, grateful to be able to be here. I highly recommend you run on site or online to watch a movie. I won't go through the details there, but watch a movie. It lets you get to kind of know the team. And maybe these guys will let me play it when it's all said and done after they wrap up if you want to see it. But you can meet the people involved. You can kind of understand the spirit and why we're here, and why we're building this, and why mankind needs to have a better future for the next generation than the prior generation that just deploys these centralized systems blindly. I mean, everybody connects to everything online, and everything online is not good. I actually believe that moral degradation in society has occurred because of what the internet's done to our generation. And families and culture and history is being ruined from it. I believe we can turn that around. I really want to show you this video, but I'm out of time. Does this all make sense to everybody? So we're here. If you have questions, if you want to get involved, just tell us. We're super open. This isn't about greed or fame or anything else. It's about intelligently using technology as mankind together. Because we have to we've got to come together to do this better. Today you've heard lots of different topics on similar things, but people are going in different directions. The key is, how can we do it together on open standards and open source? So I'll be done now, but thank you.